Hey, what's up you guys? It's Bloody Jacob here to bring you my video talking about the series premiere of AMC's new Breaking Bad spin-off, which I'm sure you've heard about. If you haven't already watched it by now, Better Call Saul. Now, just to get this out of the way, I'm a big fan of Breaking Bad. I love the original series. I didn't watch it when it originally aired, but I very quickly bought the DVDs and I've seen the entire series quite a while ago. Quite a while ago, I finished it. I even have a review of the series finale of that. It's one of my older videos I have uploaded here, but you can search it and you'll find it if you want to see my thoughts on that. Great series finale, by the way, perfect, satisfying in every way, in my opinion. But anyway, so naturally, when you hear about Breaking Bad spinoff, you're gonna want to check this thing out. Now, my thoughts before I seen the first episode, which is called Uno, or, whatever you want to call it. Excuse me. But anyway, my first thoughts before I watched the episode were cautiously optimistic, I guess, because I wasn't the biggest fan of Saul Goodman's character in Breaking Bad, actually. I mean, I thought he was like a good comic relief type of character, a decent supporting character when he showed up, but I'm still not really sure if I'm interested enough in him to warrant watching an entire series. I understand it's kind of interesting to see how he became so good at his job and what he had to go through and what he actually had to do personally himself. He gets so good at it and so involved and in touch with the criminal world and stuff like that. So that part of it is kind of interesting to me, but in general, I wasn't overly intrigued by Saul's character in the original show. But of course, I'm hoping it's the same guys behind it. You got Vince Gilligan again, and some of the other same people as well. So, like I said, cautious optimism because Vince Gilligan has that magic everyone talks about because of Breaking Bad. So it's good to see him behind it again. That assures that there's a chance for the same amount of quality. And in general, the show does have this same tone that Breaking Bad has. It has the same vibe and stuff like that. But Saul's character just doesn't have that immediate emotional weight to him that Walter White's did. Yes, even in the first few episodes of Breaking Bad, it was quite a bit slower. And Breaking Bad was always more of a slow burn type of show. But Saul, there's always that immediate weight to Walt's character, even in the first episode, because, he had to deal with cancer and all that. But we don't have that same, immediate attachment or sympathy for Saul in this, or Jimmy McGill. But, I will say that I did really like the opening scene to this. If you watch the final part of Breaking Bad, you'll know that Saul said he was going to go and work at a Cinnabon. And apparently that's exactly what he did, because the opening scene, shows him at a Cinnabon, and he is apparently the manager, like he said he would be. He has a mustache, and, he has that balding hairstyle and stuff like that. He's obviously trying to, have a completely different look to him, just in case anyone by chance recognizes him. He's quite a few states away from, New Mexico at that point as well. And, there's this guy who he thinks is staring at him, and he's getting, you can see he's, really paranoid of all that still, and, it turns out the guy was, looking at a girl, and he left anyway. But, so you see Saul, it was actually a really depressing opening scene. Because, we see him, he's living this mundane, this average, dull lifestyle. And that scene definitely exudes, dull and depressing. So, we see him go home and, flip on the news and stuff like that, pouring some alcohol and stuff like that. And, that whole thing was, very accurate. And we see him, he eventually, goes into his closet, he has a little, secret compartment there. And, he, pulls out this VHS tape. Who uses a VHS anymore, right? Of, some of his commercials, under his persona or identity, Saul Goodman. and he watches a bunch of those that were, taped together, and you can see he sort of like misses being involved in that world, the excitement of it, the rush of it all, and being like somewhat important, to all of that, meant something to him. And now he lives such a completely different, like I said, dull, mundane, normal lifestyle. He gets he's kind of drinking himself into, a corner here, pretty much. So it was pretty depressing. It actually made me feel a little bit bad for Saul here. I did feel a little bit bad for him. So it was really clever the way they did that. And I honestly hope they show more scenes of what Saul does after Breaking Bad ends, because I think there might be something else that happens after the whole Cinnabon thing. Maybe it'll be sort of like Breaking Bad in its final season, when it showed that scene of Walter White going to their house, in an episode that we won't, in some episodes that we won't see until the end of the season. Maybe they'll continue that later on in the series at some point. So I'd like to see more of those scenes. I'd like to see like some kind of huge like wrap up that we see and understand more because of seeing this prequel side of it too. So I hope we see more of that. That was really nice touch. And we see that Saul, or I should say Jimmy McGill. We see that Jimmy, it goes back to the prequel side of it. He's not very good at his job. He's not nearly as slick or as lucky or clever as he is when he becomes Saul Goodman. Of course, because this is about 6 years before Breaking Bad, I believe. And, so we see him struggling, and, you see his brother, Chuck, he used to work at that high-end law firm, and, he doesn't work there anymore, which we'll probably find out more about, obviously. But, and he's trying to, Jimmy's trying to help his brother out, by trying to get all the money he can, from the main guy that's running that firm. He's trying to get the money that he feels they owe his brother. So, his brother's quite a bit older than him as well, so it's going to be kind of interesting to see what happens to him. I sort of imagine somehow he'll die he'll die within the prequel timeline at some point, but I'm not sure how, obviously. So Saul's trying to take care of his brother and trying to get money back from them, except, they're only paying him little by little as if he still works there. Whereas, Jimmy is trying to get his brother, all of it at once. And then we find out later, between a conversation between Jimmy and Chuck, that, Chuck's actually been taking money from him. So, that gets Jimmy pissed off and stuff like that. So that's another depressing situation as well. But one of the lighter and funnier parts of it was when Saul's driving down the road, and then he, this guy jumps out and he crashes, he runs him over basically. Doesn't really run him over, but he runs him over basically. I don't know what I was trying to say there, but of course these guys were doing it on purpose to get some money. They asked for $500 after the opening scene, or one of the earlier scenes in the episode, where Saul's in court defending those 3 kids with the tape with the head and stuff like that. Saul made about $700 after that, off of that, I mean. And these kids that set up this whole thing, the younger guys, they wanted $500 from him, and it was good to see Saul actually not take any crap from them. That was kind of cool. It's kind of funny to see Saul get worked up too. It's kind of hilarious. But Bob Odenkirk does that side of Saul pretty well. I'll give him that. When Saul gets worked up, and that sharpness of his wit and things like that. It isn't quite as sharp as it will be later on, but it's still a very present part of the character, Jimmy McGill. So that part was good, and it's good tie into how he gets those guys to help him out later. So yeah, there's not a whole lot more I need to talk about, I don't think. We see him, sharing a cigarette with I don't know the woman's name, but, the one that was also at that law firm, the blonde. We see him, it seems like they have a bit of a history as well. And, of course, it left off at a fairly decent cliffhanger, for Breaking Bad fans. We see, with those younger guys on the skateboards I mentioned earlier, we see they try to set up the us who Jimmy thought was his client, but went to the high end firm instead. They try to set her up with the same thing they did to Saul or Jimmy earlier in the episode, and she apparently just like drives off when she hits him, and I'm gonna have to wrap this up pretty quickly, but she hits him and then they follow the car. They're surprised she drove off like that. And she gets out of the car, and it's not this Betsy woman we've seen earlier. It's not this couple. It's this little Mexican, Hispanic type of woman, and the guys are brought inside by her. And when Saul goes there, he gets someone to answer the door, but it's not a little old Mexican woman. It's someone holds out a gun, points at Saul's head, and it's Tuco Salamanca of all people. You guys remember him, like in the earlier season 1, season 2 parts of Breaking Bad. So it's really cool to see him, and I'm sure that's going to ramp up things in Saul's world as well, starting to get him more involved in that criminal side of things. You don't need a criminal lawyer, you need a criminal lawyer, right? So that's definitely going to make things a bit more intriguing. It was also good to see Mike in this episode. I love Jonathan Banks' acting as the character. I'm sure he'll become more of a factor on the show the more it goes on. And, the only thing bad about Tuco in the show is that we know he's not going to die in the series. We know he, spoilers, dies in, early season 2 of Breaking Bad, which is after all of this prequel stuff. So I'm not really as concerned about that personally because of that, but still cool to see Tuco, and it'll be interesting to see how he makes things a little bit more intense with Jimmy and everyone around him and stuff, so that should be cool. I'll be watching the second episode, which aired last night. I might be watching that tonight. I'm not sure if I'll do a video on that or not, though. I'm not sure if I'll be reviewing this show every week either. It's kind of nice to see a character from Breaking Bad back again, but I'm not necessarily overly interested in him. But I'll probably be watching it at least for the first season, unless I really do not like the show or something like that. But it did come off a bit dull and sort of like empty to me, but a little bland. But still, is nice. It had some nice touches to it, some pretty decent comedic moments too, and it was good to see that flash forward of Saul at the Cinnabon after Breaking Bad. But yeah, it could turn into a pretty good show. And Bob Odenkirk is good in the role as always. So yeah, I'll catch you guys next time, and peace.